How are you doing? Charlotte
I'm
Cardin.
good. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like I'm like whirlwind tornado. I'm like a Looney Tunes cartoon where it's like, get everything ready. You're the first artist we've had in this space.
Really?
Officially, yes.
Oh, cool.
We've had a few
lucky.
people pop through like as we've been getting it ready, but like I feel like today I'm looking at the team. It seems like it's kind of together. It doesn't look like we just moved in.
It looks super together.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected to be the first one here. I love it. Thank you.
I mean, we were saving it, making sure that we had the best artist first, obviously.
I'm honored.
Just trying to suck up right away. Charlotte Cardin, welcome to XYZ.
Thanks for having me.
This is
cool.
exciting. You have a little surprise EP that we didn't know was coming.
Yeah.
That you just announced a week in Nashville tomorrow. Technically now, if you're hearing this.
Yes, technically now. I'm very, very excited about this. It's called A Week in Nashville. It's a 3-song EP. So it's like a mini EP of songs that I wrote with friends of mine in Nashville. And Nashville is a city that I completely fell in love with when so I had gone to Nashville many times touring, but you know how it is. Like you're touring, you're there for like a split second.
Maybe you get the chicken or something and then
maybe
peace.
if you're lucky.
Yes.
And so I had never really experienced like the full Nashville experience. And so last year for the first time I went to Nashville for like a couple weeks and I just fell in love with the vibe, the place, the people, the creative bubble there is just so exciting and beautiful. And so so I wrote songs there and I wanted to put them out into the world before the summer and
Here we are, which is funny because it's on the tails of 99 Nights, which I don't know if you know is doing kind of well and winning some awards here and there, still climbing the charts. It's like having one baby still running for the finish line and doing great, and then you're like, hey, let's have another, let's throw another thing out there.
Yeah, well, you know, it's so fun to keep it dynamic, and it's exciting to release a few songs before summer festivals as well. We've been touring a lot in the last year.
Everywhere.
I've been, it's been a lot of traveling and touring. It's been super exciting and fun, and it's always nice to like add new songs to the set, even in a very selfish way. I'm like, okay, this is so fun to just have more songs to play live and to share with people.
Going off of that, 2 weeks ago, you posted a cover of Goo Goo Dolls' Iris, which incredible, but that goes without saying. Are you someone that likes to cover stuff a lot in your own time, even if it's not going out publicly? Is that how you warm up your voice? You do that before sound check?
Yes, I love covering songs.
Yeah.
I feel like, so I grew up listening to a lot of like pop artists and just being like really, I think I was really into like songwriting and but as a listener. And so I grew up covering a lot of songs before I even started writing my own. And so that's always kind of stayed a part of who I was as an artist. I guess I like telling stories through my own storytelling, of course. Like singing a song that I wrote is like an unbeatable feeling. But I think telling stories through someone else's storytelling is also a really interesting way to, I think, improve my, you know, my performance and the way that I can tell my own stories as well. So I love doing both.
Well, that's the hope too, as a songwriter, a musician, right? You put your song out there and it becomes everyone else's song at that point, right?
Yeah,
it now belongs to an audience, a community. So being on the receiving end of that when you were younger, do you remember the first song you ever covered? Or one of the first? Throw some out there.
I remember the first song I ever sang live at a concert. So it was like more like a recital because I was taking singing lessons. I started when I was 7 years old. And I think at my first recital and then probably the 10 next ones, I did a Celine Dion song. I was obsessed with her growing up.
That's a bold way to break onto the scene.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. Big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
But I think it was a song called Destin. It's a French song of Celine. It means destiny. It's a beautiful song. But that's the first one I ever covered. We didn't call it covers back then. Not that I knew of. It was more like I was like singing Celine.
I'm embodying Celine.
Embodying her.
And you know, at the risk of being the tripe interview of like, oh, you're from Canada and it's a little different. I have a couple of friends from Toronto I've recently gotten closer with, and you realize how many words are different. I didn't know garburator was a thing. We don't call it that.
What do you call it?
We call it a garbage disposal.
Really?
See, like that moment right there.
Oh, wow. Okay. To me, like a garburator is like a very specific
My friend
thing.
said that, and I was like, did you sneeze? What's happening right now? Your parents are super smart. They have PhDs. They're scientists. And I heard in some other interviews you talked about growing up, like they have an appreciation for the arts. It's just a very different brain than, you.
Yeah.
When they were supporting you as a musician early on, did they have a very mathematical or scientific approach to the music? Because music inherently you know, it's a lot of theory behind it.
Yeah, a lot of theory. I think probably without realizing it, both my parents are very musical, but in very different ways. Like my mom just like knows how to harmonize naturally. And I think that's a very mathematical thing. Yeah. Like it's just all the notes kind of like fit into each other or don't. My mom's just always been like, she's always had a very good ear. She plays the piano beautifully. So I think, yeah, but that makes sense. Maybe it's her scientific brain that can do those things. And my dad is a huge like rock and roll fan, but I feel like my dad ended up being a scientist, but really in his heart, he should have been an artist. Like he's a rock star. Like he will like play air guitar in the kitchen for hours.
That's
like
great.
He's just giving performances.
So your dad has the writer when you do shows, not you.
Yes.
He's like, listen, green M&Ms all day.
No. Yeah. He's the one who has all the demands. Yeah. But my parents are scientists, but they love music very much.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very left brain, right brain, but appreciating both, which is nice to hear.
Exactly.
You were talking about, you were writing in Nashville, obviously this EP, A Week in Nashville. And that's somewhere that you wanted to revisit and write in. Are there other places where you're like, I've been there, I appreciate it, I love it. I know you live in Paris currently, or you did? Yeah, you do?
Yeah, I do live in Paris.
Have you written much there? And let me just give you as many questions as possible at once. No big deal here. Where's somewhere you've always wanted to write?
There are lots of places. I mean, as I mentioned before, like through touring, you get to see a lot, but you don't really get to experience and like immerse yourself in the cultures and the different cities. I did write a little bit in Paris, to go back to that question. Yes. I put out an EP called A Week in Paris about 6 months ago. Yeah. And I thought that it was just an interesting way for me to go places, write with some people who are based there who, have different approaches to songwriting and just different, I guess, music reflexes and instincts, and to then put out an EP called A Week in. So far it's 2 EPs. I don't know if we're going to have
It sounds like
more
it's the beginning of a series.
Potentially. I mean, it's exciting that it could be. Yeah. I've never spent that much time in New York, which is like, no, that's not true. I take that back. I spent a month in New York when I was modeling when I was 18, but I hated it so much, and it wasn't for music. It's a different world. I've never spent time like songwriting in New York, and I would love to do that. There are so many places in Europe. I'd love to spend more time in Berlin. It's such a creative city. It's such a beautiful place. So there are lots of, every day I feel like I'm like, oh, I could see myself living here. That's
me in a lot of cities. And then I spend an extra day there and I'm like, maybe not this one.
Yeah.
And I'm Chicago born and raised. Yeah. I lived in New York for many years and I miss it every day. So I can't advocate enough. Everyone should spend at least a year of their life. Even if you can't sustain every single day, like go back as much as you can.
Okay, noted. I really want to. Where were you living in
I was
New
in
York?
Hell's Kitchen primarily. Okay. So just west of Times Square.
Nice.
So I was wanted to cheat my walk to work. I was working in Times Square. I was dealing with Blue Elmos trying to jump into the live camera shot and whatnot. And then I lived down in Tribeca, which is a fun area.
Cool. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So
Jealous.
3-song EP.
Yeah.
Out now. And we're talking as if I've heard it. I haven't heard everything yet because with the magic of radio and production and whatnot, it's out. But
I'll send you some sneak peeks.
Well, I appreciate that. Are we telling a 3-part story, or is it just 3 songs?
So it's 3 songs. 3 very personal songs.
We've heard Lonely With Our Love.
Yes, Lonely With Our Love is the first song that we put out for that EP. And it's like it's the leading single of the EP, but it's Lonely With Our Love. So I've been in a long distance relationship for 7.5 years. My partner lives in Paris. I technically now live in Paris, but I've just been.
Your life's on the road right now.
It's on the road. So I don't really I feel like I have a home at the moment. And that's something I've really been struggling with. And so Lonely With Our Love is a song about feeling like being in love is a lonelier situation than being alone in my situation. And I think the EP is very much of a little diary. It's super, super intimate and personal. And I really wanted to put out those songs because they brought me so much comfort writing them. And I made friends writing them in Nashville. And you know how sometimes you'll like meet people and immediately there's like a connection.
There's
and you're
magic.
like,
I've known you my whole life.
Right. And it feels like you can share anything. And so these 3 songs, 2 of them were written with Gabe Simon, who's an incredible producer and songwriter. And we became friends instantly. And the other one was written with Topher Brown. And he's also someone who I connected with immediately. And so it's just nice to create friendships through like storytelling that is so personal and that's actually very healing, even though you're talking about things that are hurting you or just some things that are really difficult to talk about. So, yeah.
Is it ever painful to relive anything that you've written as you're singing it? Or at this point, once you release a song, you're able to disassociate, at least to that degree, from it?
I mean, you would think that it's a painful thing, but I think it's always been very soothing.
Cathartic,
to me. Yeah. When you it kind of feels like you're talking to a therapist a little bit.
Sure.
You know how like sometimes putting words on something that you've been holding back is just, like a very therapeutic feeling. So no, I've never, although when I was singing Lonely with Our Love for the first few times in the studio, I was like, properly crying.
Sure.
In the studio.
It's very intimate that you're sharing.
Yeah. But I think, but that was the only time in my life that's ever happened. Like we had to like stop the take because I was like fully sobbing. But it's also something that will liberate you from
100%. You've had quite the life, and I don't want to go through everything because there would be too much. We don't have enough time, and but it's quite the accolades and the career and the journey. But with that said, I would imagine a lot of the things you write about are from further in the past, and then when you write, that's not released to the public right away. There's months, years even.
Yes.
What's the fastest you've gone from pen to paper to someone has like an actual audience, public has heard your song?
Well, so Lonely with Our Love is the fastest.
Wow.
I wrote it like not even a month ago. I can't even believe this has been it's been released yet. It was written I want to say 3.5 weeks ago. And what happened is we had those 2 other songs for the EP.
Yeah.
We had another song that we really liked, but it was a duet with a Nashville artist. And last minute, she was releasing something else with someone else. She was like, you know what? I can't hop on this song anymore. So I was like, okay, I love this song, but I think it just doesn't make sense if it's not with her.
Sure.
So I was like, what should we do? And we were like, we don't really know if we're going to release this EP anymore. And we're like, okay, well, we'll see what life brings us. And a couple days later, I was in the studio with Gabe Simon, who I told you about, and we wrote Lonely with Our Love. And I was like, I want to release this song, and I want it to be the leading single to this EP.
That's great.
And it just made so much sense because it was also written in Nashville. It was so close to obviously what I was going through, and but that's the fastest process ever.
Which for those that don't know, that's how you know you're working with the right team and the right people around you, because it is a lot easier said than done to write something, even if it's fully produced and ready, to get your manager, your label, your whole team on board and going, I want to put this out now.
Yeah, I was really lucky. It just felt like the stars were aligned. Everyone loved the song and was like, and believed in it, and everyone was like on the same page. So it's just one of those songs that felt like it wrote itself, and the rest is history. It was put into the world, and it made me feel really good. So. Yeah,
well, I am so excited to hear the whole thing. It's out now. Those are contradicting statements. I promise I did my research. This is just pre-recorded. Charlotte Cardin, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to catch up soon.
Thank you so much for having me.